We're getting to know Mr. McGarry here, who works in the Godly Play classrooms. Okay, so a mantra is a motivating chant. What is your favorite mantra or saying that inspires you? And I did give you the questions ahead of time. Maybe I shouldn't have said that, but
no, that's all right.
you've gotten the questions just to
I
be
asked.
fair.
Yeah, I don't do mantras.
Okay, that's fine.
But I do have some sayings that that I like. People don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. And I've used that in life, in business, and in everything. And then a couple of ones that my dad taught me was always leave the place better than you found it. Mm. And that applies to not just camping, but life in general. Like speak life. Don't speak words that take life. Speak words that give life. Mm. And he also said to me, aim high. And at the time he said it, I was in high school, and I thought I could use a little more detail. but the older I got, I realized no. If you added detail, it would crimp the whole meaning of it. So it's basically like if you go down to Oregon and Coos Bay, there's a big mural of Steve Prefontaine, and he said, "To not give your best is to sacrifice the gift." This is one of his quotes. That's another something along the same lines. Life is a gift, and go at it with all you've got. And to do anything less is just wrong. Or the Spartans had something similar. Did he have passion in other cultures?
I am loving these. I think we've got to start a McGarry bumper sticker campaign here. You are full of great slogans. Love them. How would you spend a day off? Or, I mean, how would you spend a day, right?
Well, I am retired.
Yeah.
So it's not that you have every day off, but you kind of do. I mean, outside in general. So I like being outside and volunteering. So before COVID, I was volunteering at some places, and I would do that again. And then Taekwondo is something I have been involved with for the last 20 years.
That's so neat. So if you're having a bad day, though, what is one thing that can instantly make your day better?
I love the ocean, and I love the ocean walking on the shore, or if I was Matt Atkins, walking on the water with Peter by his side. Walking on the shore when it's a clear but windy, like with waves crashing. I just love that. It just brings me alive. Or on a moonless, star-filled night on the back of a sailboat, staring up at the Milky Way.
Oh man!
So it's like that Switchfoot song. And when I look at the stars, I feel like myself.
Oh, that's good.
I don't know if you know Switchfoot, but I think he's a great poet.
Yeah,
John Foreman.
I should be taking notes, although we're recording, so I'm gonna rewatch. I'm gonna try these hot tips. What is to you the hardest or the biggest silver lining of 2020?
Yeah, I think I take on the positive side. It's the mRNA sequencing to develop the vaccines that are mRNA developed. So that's the protein that goes in the DNA that tells the DNA it's a messenger, and it tells it how to develop a protein. So those proteins, when it's injected, automatically fight off the virus. Before this, you give a little bit of the virus or a little bit of the flu in your body, your immune system reacts to that. This is completely different. And without DNA sequencing, we wouldn't have been able to do it. So it bodes really well for the future. Like if something else comes up, that we'll be able to react to it. Like what I read online is they had the sequencing done, or based on the sequencing, they had a solution to it as far back as February, and the rest was pre-manufacturing it.
Wow.
So I think
Wow.
that'll be a positive for a
That's
number of
some
things
good news.
forward.
Yeah, that'll get us back into the classroom. Speaking of classroom, what godly play room were you helping in, and what was your role in that room?
I think I was K2, kindergarten and second grade. So good age for kids. And I was the teacher or whatever.
Storyteller.
The storyteller.
The story. You told the stories. Yeah. And so what was your favorite part of godly play?
I like the structure, and that it's got some continuity to it, so that the kids can anticipate, we can anticipate. And I don't know how to word it, but they're just the way it quiets people down to actually listen. So there's a little bit of, we're going to be quiet. You don't enter the circle unless this happens or whatever. And at first I thought, well, that's a little bit much. When I first saw it, I went, But then when you actually get into it, you go, okay, to actually quiet yourself in order to listen. There's no other way to listen unless you kind of turn down the noise. But it's a challenge even for the adults sometimes when there's so much coming at us. So it's good to see it done in the class.
Yeah. So this doesn't have to be from the Godly Play curriculum, but do you have a favorite Bible story that stands out to you, and why?
I do. Like, other than Christ, my favorite character is Elijah. And I love 1 Kings 18. Just going to read that.
Yeah.
So I'm going to skip past some of it.
That's okay.
But essentially, in King 17, God tells Elijah there's going to be a drought. So there's a drought for 7 years. And then in 1 Kings 18, it gets into, so you have a bad king, and his name is Ahab. And so Elijah, he thinks he's alone. He's not truly alone because God hid 50 other prophets somewhere, but he didn't know that at the time. So it takes some guts to go in front of the king, one-on-one, mano a mano. And Ahab says to him, "Is that you troubler of Israel?" And then Elijah looks straight back at him and goes, "I have not made trouble for Israel. You and your father's family have. You have." So I'll skip past some stuff. And then basically he says, we're going to challenge the prophets of Baal to say, or Baal, some people say. And we're going to make a sacrifice up on Mount Carmel. If you've been to Israel, it's like a hill near the ocean. But there's been no rain for a long, long time. And so he says to the prophets of Baal, you go first because there's like a few hundred of you, there's just one of me. So you can call on your God, and whoever answers by fire, that's the real God. So they're doing their sacrifice, and they have a bull, and they've cut it up, and they're praying to their God. But it's going on for a long time, and he starts to taunt them and say, shout louder, sure he's a God, perhaps he's deep in thought or busy, which is a euphemism for gone to the bathroom. Or maybe he's traveling, maybe he's sleeping, needs to be awakened. So they shouted louder and slashed themselves with swords and spears, as was the custom. So midday passed, and so basically he says, okay, you had your chance, come to me. So Elijah tells the people to make the altar. So he assembles 12 stones, each for one of the 12 tribes of Israel. And then he puts the bull on that and the wood, and then he tells them to douse it with water 3 times, like with big buckets of water, until the thing's completely soaked and all the water's in this trench around it. And then he prays to God. He goes, Lord God of Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, let it be known today that you are God in Israel, and I am your servant, and I have done these things at your command. Answer me, O Lord, answer me, that these thy people will know that you are God, and you are turning their hearts back again. and it says, "Then the fire of the Lord fell." And I just think of a movie, a script with this in it, just like there's no clouds, and they're all up there, and it's starting to be dusk, and this fireball just starts coming from heaven, and poof, and burns up the sacrifice, the wood, the stones, and the soil, and licked up the water in the trench. And when the people saw this, they fell prostrate, which is fell on their face, and say, "The Lord, He is God. The Lord, He is God."
I love that story. That's so good.
Yeah. And it continues, like just before that, it's the one Aaron was having, I think it was last week, about the widow.
Yeah.
They make me a little bread. So it's just before that where he's really down in the dumps. And if you
Yeah.
go into the New Testament in 1 James 5, James says Elijah was a man with just like us, and he prayed earnestly, and it didn't rain for 7 years, I think it was. And then he prayed again, and it did rain.
Yeah.
And I think this is a guy. He's kind of like Peter, but he's one of the few people that, or I think there's just 3 in the Bible, that never died. He went up to heaven in a chariot.
Yeah.
So I like him because he's a human.
He's a human, and yet, and look at how he lived.
Yeah.
Incredible and inspiring. Well, thank you so much for allowing us to get to know you a little better and for doing this interview. And I'm excited to see this epic, motion picture featuring Elijah for next week. We don't know
That'd be awesome.
who's going to do it, but it's going to be great.
Featuring, I don't know, who would play the lead.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much.
All right.
All right.
Thanks for the interview.
Bye.